Today, we're going to talk about something that not many people like talking about, which is creating your estate plan and putting that plan in place. Hi, I'm Michelle with Financial Design Studio, and today we're going to talk about what is an estate plan, how to fund it, to make sure that you know all of the pieces to get that plan in place. So first, let's talk about what an estate plan even is. When we think of a plan for your estate, we're thinking of some common documents. Now, normally, these might be documents like a will, and this is just who you want to inherit assets once you pass away, a trust, and this kind of gives more detail of how you want assets to be passed on and to who, and then a power of attorney, and these are documents where you're saying who you want to make decisions for you. Now let's just talk about when these are used. So a power of attorney, when you're using this document, you are still alive. The only thing is that you can't make decisions for yourself. So think about times where you're unconscious, maybe you've been in an accident, or maybe you're just having a surgery, and for a period of time, hours maybe, you can't make your own decisions, so you need to appoint someone who can make those for you. Now a will and a trust are documents that are actually used after you've passed away. And so this is where you're needing to say, this is who I want to inherit assets that I might have, and this is how I want them to. So maybe you're going to say over a period of time or in a certain percentage over those years. This is where you can get very specific. Now, once you have this plan in place, now it actually comes time to fund it. Now, as you were getting your plan in place, you needed to give your attorney some information. So a lot of these pieces you've already given them, even now that your documents are created. But let's just review the items you gave them. So the accounts that you have, let's just go through a list of some common ones. So maybe you have a checking account, an IRA or a Roth IRA. Maybe you have an individual or a joint account. And these are accounts that are just used for your investments. Maybe you have life insurance, or even like most employees, maybe you have a retirement account like a 401k or some other type of retirement account. But these are pretty common accounts that people can have. And I wanted to look at this list of accounts you might have because it actually becomes important when we say, how do we actually put our plan in place? All right, now let's step back just a little bit. We got our documents created, but even before you get them created, there's a few things that you should probably have done and you should probably have prepared. So first, one of the things you want to think through before getting these created is who you want to act or be in place to get your plan fulfilled how you want it to be. So who is going to act? Who's going to actually sign the paperwork and do the things that are needed to do or make decisions? And then you also need to let your attorney know your net worth. Now, this becomes important because they'll need to know what size or the amount of assets that you have, because at some point around the $4 to $5 million range, estate taxes come into play. And so they might want to make some changes in these documents they're creating for you. So the net worth is something you need to calculate. Now, this is something you may have never done before, but you're in luck. We've got some videos for this that show you how to calculate your net worth and then also how to update that net worth every year as time goes on. So that net worth statement is something you want to give to your attorney because that tells them all of these accounts that you have in place and the balances of them. So now they know how to make the best plan for you. So now we're going to move on to putting your plan in place. So first, one of the common things that you're going to hear about is funding your trust. So as part of your plan, if you had a trust created, you actually need to fund that. So just because you have a trust document that's written and says, this is what I want to happen, if there's no accounts that are titled in the name of that trust, then it's not going to happen, or it may take longer to happen. So we need to fund our trust. And this very simply means to rename your accounts in the title of the trust. So instead of myself owning my checking account. So instead of being the Michelle Smallenberger checking account, it might be the Michelle Smallenberger Revocable Living Trust checking account. A trust is very simply just a non-person identity or entity that holds assets instead of them being in your name. Okay, so let's talk about what funding this trust actually means now that we know that we need to do it. So let's say that we've got our trust created and now we need to retitle and rename these accounts in the name of the trust. We're just going to go one by one so you can think about how you'll need to do this for yourself. Your checking account, for example, this can be a tricky account to actually name as a trust because when you need to sign paperwork, you don't want to always have to prove this is my trust, here's the document. In a checking account, it's actually great to leave it in your name or if you're married jointly so that you and your spouse can both function in it. So that's not an account that we're going to name in the trust. An IRA is an individual retirement account. It can only be named in your name as the individual. And so this account actually goes by a beneficiary. So we're just going to make a note here that we're not going to name it in the title of the trust, but rather we're going to think about who we want the beneficiary to be. So this one we're not going to have to put in the trust either. Now this individual or joint investment account, these are accounts that don't have beneficiaries on them commonly. And so we're going to say that's an account that can go in the trust. So instead of having my individual investment account, I'm just going to rename that to be the name of my trust. Because this account, since it's for longer term purposes, for money in the future, I don't need to interact on it on a day-to-day basis like my checking account. So this is a great account to put in the trust. So now I've funded my trust because now I have named an account actually to be titled in the trust, the name of the trust. So an individual account, a trust account, whichever one you have, those can go in the name of your trust. And you might have multiple of these that as you go through this process, you might be consolidating them. Life insurance, this is something that also has a beneficiary. So this is not something that we commonly need to name in the trust. However, there could be some complex situations where this might become needed. And this, remember, was why you needed that net worth statement. So that actually could become important. But for this instance, really simply, we're going to say, that just goes by the beneficiary because if you need to be renaming your life insurance in trust, that's something you should be working with an advisor on to make sure you're doing it the right way. Now your 401k, same thing. This also has a beneficiary. And so these will actually just go by who you list on the beneficiary when you pass away. So this doesn't need to go in the trust. The trust, what happens is once you've titled these in the name of the trust, these will actually then flow to your beneficiaries, but it will go easier because on these types of accounts, we don't name a beneficiary, so we need the trust to get it to our beneficiaries. But an IRA, life insurance, and a 401k, these we name beneficiaries directly on them, so those can go directly to the beneficiaries themselves. So these are just gonna flow right to those people that we've named. And again, if in your situation a trust is needed, you would want to be sure that you're working with your estate planning attorney or a financial advisor to make sure, because at different levels and different amounts, you might need to change who your beneficiaries are. But for today's purpose, we're really just talking about the documents we need to have and how we put that plan in place, which is how we're just renaming accounts. And then the next thing to put your plan in place, finally, is just giving those documents to the people that need to have them. So this is very simply where you give them a copy, or you might actually want to just let them know where a copy is. So you may keep the originals that are signed, and then you're actually just keeping them in a place that they have access to. Another great video that we have available is checking who your beneficiaries are, because this is really important that you're always aware that you know who is listed on different accounts. So until next time, thank you for watching.